Fair warning, what you're about to hear will make some of you uncomfortable, but if you stick around until the end, it will all make sense.
But there is a very dark, unrepentant chapter of his life that won't die that easily, that time and most of the corporate-controlled Western media have glossed over. His role in the 1970s dirty war in Argentina. A human rights lawyer accused him of war crimes as documented in the LA Times of April 1st, 2005. But this has been sadly overlooked. 30,000 people were killed in that dark episode of Argentine history, and recently classified documents shows the United States gave full backing of that coup. A Catholic priest, Christian von Wernich, has already been jailed for his complicity of the murders, as well as the president of Argentina, Jorge Rafael Fidela. But who is the man in the top left who was giving him mass? It was the highest-ranking Jesuit provincial in Argentina, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the current and newly elected pope. In both the Vietnam and Argentine wars, the Jesuits have only intensified the conflict. Pope Francis I's coat of arms bears the Jesuit symbol IHS. The mind behind the Jesuits was a Spanish Basque soldier, Don Inigo de Recalde, who founded the Jesuits. After being wounded in a war, he had an hallucinatory mystical experience, and he later his name from Inigo to Ignatius, which means to ignite. While studying in France, he recruited a company of young impressionable minds, and in 1534 the Jesuits were founded in France, where it was officially approved by a papal bull in Italy in 1540 by Pope Paul III. The Jesuits' modus operandi is that in order to control the policy of the world and future generations, you educate the children of today in medieval secular Catholicism.
Even if you want to skip this video, please pay attention to every word for the next 2 minutes or so. Who are the Jesuits? The Jesuit oath will show you exactly who they are. I now, in the presence of the Almighty God, the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Blessed Michael the Archangel, the Blessed Saint John the Baptist, and my ghostly father, the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, founded by Saint Ignatius Loyola, do by the womb of the Virgin swear that His Holiness the Pope is Christ's Vice-Regent, and is the true and only head of the Catholic or Universal Church. I do now renounce and disown any allegiances due to any heretical king, prince, or state, named Protestant or liberal, or obedience to any of their laws or magistrates or officers. I do further declare the doctrine of the Church of England and Scotland and of Calvinists, Huguenots, and others of the name of Protestant or liberal to be damnable, and themselves to be damned, who will not forsake the same. I do further promise and declare that, notwithstanding I am dispensed with, to assume my religion heretical for the propagation of Mother Church's interest, to keep secret and private all her agents, counsels, from time to time as they interest me, and not divulge directly or indirectly by word, writing, or circumstances whatever. I do furthermore promise and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, make and wage relentless war secretly or openly against all heretics, Protestants, and liberals, as I am directed to, extirpate them from the face of the earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, or condition, and that I will hang, burn, waste, boil, flay, strangle, and bury alive those infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of the women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls in order to annihilate their inexorable race. That, when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poisonous cup, the strangulating cords, the steels of the poignard, or the leaden bullets, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the persons, whatever may be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed to by any agent of the Pope, or the Superior of the Holy Father of the Society of Jesus. In confirmation of which I hereby dedicate my life, my soul, and my corporeal powers, and with this dagger which I now receive, I will subscribe my name written in my blood in testimony thereof, and should I prove false or weaken in my determination, may my brethren and fellow soldiers of the militia of the Pope cut off my hands and my feet, and my throat from ear to ear, rip my belly open, and sulfur burn therein, and all the punishments that can be inflicted on me on earth, and my soul be tortured by demons in an eternal hell forever. In testimony thereof, I take this most holy and blessed sacrament of the Eucharist, and witness the same further with my name written with the point of this dagger, dipped in my own blood, and sealed in the face of the Holy Covenant. What a nice oath by a group that calls themselves the Society of Jesus. In case you need more clarification on the validity of the source, this information comes from the National Library of Australia, nla.gov.au. We are merely sharing with you publicly available information. Let's not forget, as we pointed out earlier, that the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, is a Jesuit. Nice Masonic sign right there. On the surface, Jesuits are thought to be a community of Catholic clergymen who aspire to glorify God and seek the good of all humanity.
Within the priesthood in Roman Catholicism, there's a special group of priests called Jesuits. The new pope, for the first time ever in history, is from the Jesuits. The Jesuit Society is simply the Society of Jesus, nicknamed Jesuits. That's their name, their official name, the Society of Jesus. They, on the surface, are engaged in education. They have about 190 universities and schools in the United States. There are about 24,800 of these Jesuits. They're not parish priests. They're a special order of priests who give themselves on the surface to education and to care for the poor. In the long war on the truth, the most formidable and relentless and deceptive enemy has always been Roman Catholicism. There's no deception with Islam, there's no deception with Hinduism, there's no deception with Buddhism. There is massive deception with Roman Catholicism. There are 1.2 billion Roman Catholics in the world who are under this deception to one degree or another. And its deception lies in the fact that it's an apostate, corrupted, heretical, false kind of Christianity. It is the kingdom of Satan wearing a Christian mask. The true church of the Lord Jesus has always understood this. It's always understood it since Catholicism began to form itself in the 4th century. All the way to the Reformation, even through what was known as the Dark Ages, say from 400 to 1500, leading up to the Reformation, genuine Christian believers always set themselves against the heretical system that was developing, that became known as the Roman Catholic Church. It was always rejected by the true church. And the Roman system was always going after Huguenots and Waldensians and Anabaptists. Those were those who took issue with the system in favor of the truth.
Many of you are familiar with the Big Bang Theory. One might think that a secular atheist devised the theory as an alternative explanation for how life began to exist on Earth. If you thought so, you're in for a rude awakening.
What's the meaning of life? Why is there anything? How did it all start? Those seem to me to be scientific questions, or potentially scientific questions. If there are some questions of that sort that science can never answer, then we should at least keep trying to answer them. And if science can't answer them, religion having a crack at answering them, if there's no reason to think that religion has any basis for an answer, then why would religion have a crack? Why would you bother to listen to religion having a crack at answering them? I mean, one thing I would say is there may be questions that science can't answer, like the origin of everything. But if science can't answer them, then religion certainly can't, and nothing else can either.
But one Jesuit scientist has a far more vast influence on modern science than people can imagine. And one of the most respected astrophysicists in North America, Neil deGrasse Tyson, informs us where he gets his inspiration from.
You learn, oh, the molecules and the atoms of those molecules in my body are traceable to stars across the galaxy that have lived their lives, manufactured these elements, exploded them into the universe, from which new generations of star systems were formed. We had a Big Bang. Big Bang put everything into motion. I'm good with that. We're good. The person who did that was a Belgian priest, Georges Lemaitre. He's a priest, physicist priest. Right. Okay? What a cool thing to have on your business card. You got people coming and going with that. But he calculated what the implications of Einstein's general relativity, which was the new theory of gravity, would be with Hubble's expanding universe. And he says the whole universe may have begun in a singular point in the past. And thus, Big Bang as a phrase was used pejoratively of this idea, but it stuck.
According to the Catholic press, the Big Bang theory was first described, but not so named, by the French Jesuit Georges Lemaître in the late 1920s. Georges Lemaître is a Jesuit whose theory he first proposed in 1931 that was actually called at the time the primeval atom hypothesis. And it is amazing that a Roman Catholic Jesuit priest can make many all over the world believe that an explosion just appeared from nowhere and formed the universe and the planet we now inhabit, and steer the direction of the astrophysicists in the scientific community.
Please join us in our fight for the truth. Please share our videos, subscribe, like, and comment. We appreciate your help. Do you now know who to thank for the ungodly and unscientific Big Bang Theory? Do you still think the Jesuits are about glorifying God and promoting the gospel of Jesus Christ? That explains why this Franciscan priest, Richard Rohr, would utter such blasphemy that the Big Bang was the birth of cosmic Christ 14.5 billion years ago.
The Big Bang is the birth of the Christ, 14.5 billion years ago. And this material manifestation has been revealing the glory of God, the nature of God, for at least 14.5 billion years. That's the cosmic Christ. So in a moment of time, this cosmic Christ is revealed for us in a human person that we could see and touch and hear and listen to and fall in love with. But in the first 2,000 years, most of the work, except for the mystics who largely got this, mainline Christianity, Catholic and Protestant, has largely been concerned about Jesus, the historical person, which is good. But what we missed out on was the cosmic Christ.
If you want to watch the rest of the video, we will have the link in the description and on the video's end screen. Many Americans are unaware of how powerful and influential the Jesuits are in the United States.
On the official app of the White House, Jesuit priest Charles Curry says that Jesuit-educated students are in strategic areas of influence all over the world. John Brennan, director of the CIA. Janet Napolitano, third United States Secretary of Homeland Security. John Kerry, United States Secretary of State. Dennis McDonough, White House Chief of Staff. Mark Thompson, CEO of the New York Times and a former Director General of the BBC. Michael O'Leary, CEO of airline Ryanair. Peter Sutherland, Chairman of Goldman Sachs International, the London School of Economics and Financial Advisor to the Vatican. Mario Draghi, President of the European Central Bank. Emilio Botin, CEO of Spanish bank Santander. And Herman Van Rompuy, the first and current President of the European Council. And in this picture you can see him standing on the left, and seated under the pillar is the Superior General of the Jesuits, Adolfo Nicolas, who can also be seen with Jesuit-educated priest Antonio Menini, the papal ambassador to Great Britain. Lincoln's assassin John Wilkes Booth was killed in a shootout, but it took place in the house where he was in hiding and was protected by a student of the Jesuits, Dr. Samuel Mudd. But where was Dr. Samuel Mudd educated? In the most powerful education institution on earth that has covertly shaped American foreign policy for almost a century, Georgetown University, that was founded by Jesuit John Carroll. In 1919, Jesuit friar Edmund Walsh set up the very first diplomatic school in the United States, where it has trained and still trains United States political leaders. President Eisenhower visits Georgetown President Edward Bunn, and President Reagan with Jesuit Timothy Healy. For Reagan's Secretary of State Alexander Haig was a Knight of Malta educated at Georgetown. Senior advisor to President Nixon, Ford, and Reagan, Pat Buchanan. Former warmongering President Bill Clinton. The directors of the CIA, both George Tenet in the Bush administration and the last head of the CIA, David Petraeus, in the Obama administration, and retired warlord Robert Gates are all Georgetown Jesuit trained. It also invites warmongers to lecture and has others on its staff. Georgetown professor, Vietnamese Catholic Viet Dinh is the chief architect of the United States Patriot Act. With the most powerful education institution on earth, and with the Jesuit priests steering the ship of the papacy, where the Jesuits have meddled in wars for almost 500 years, only common sense will tell you what is in store for the planet.
What did U.S. founding fathers think of the Jesuits? In May 1816, John Adams wrote to President Jefferson concerning the Jesuits. "I do not like the reappearance of the Jesuits. Shall we not have regular swarms of them here, in as many disguises as only a king of the gypsies can assume, dressed as printers, publishers, writers, and schoolmasters? If ever there was a body of men who merited damnation on earth and in hell, it is this society of Loyola's." Also, in 1821, John Adams asked, "Can a free government possibly exist with the Roman Catholic religion?" Most Americans don't know or care about what the Founding Fathers knew about the Jesuits. What about Abraham Lincoln? What did he say about the Jesuits? This war, referring to the American Civil War, would never have been possible without the sinister influence of the Jesuits. We owe it to popery that we now see our land reddened with the blood of her noblest sons. The Protestants of both the North and the South would surely unite to exterminate the priests and the Jesuits, if they could learn how the priests and nuns who daily land on our shores under the pretext of preaching their religion, instructing the children in their schools, taking care of the sick in the hospitals, are nothing else but the emissaries of the Pope. To undermine our institutions, alienate the hearts of our people from our Constitution and our laws, destroy our schools, and prepare a reign of anarchy here as they have done in Ireland, in Mexico, in Spain, and wherever there are any people who want to be free. He didn't mince words, and it cost him his life. What about Samuel Morse, the inventor of the telegraph and Morse code? The author undertakes to show that a conspiracy against the liberties of this republic is now in full action, under the direction of the wily Prince Metternich of Austria, who, knowing the impossibility of obliterating this troublesome example of a great and free nation by force of arms, is attempting to accomplish his object through the agency of an army of Jesuits. The array of facts and arguments going to prove the existence of such a conspiracy will astonish any man who opens the book with the same incredulity as we did. Like John Adams rightly pointed out, the Jesuits are everywhere and have taken over the United States government, media, and schools.
CIA headquarters in the summer of 1953, Alan Dulles, the agency's director, recruits E. Howard Hunt as his propaganda chief in the plot to oust Arbenz.
And they took me into a small room in the agency and swore me a special oath. I must never tell what they were going to tell me. And I wouldn't presume to trace the lines of authority within the Catholic Church, how they get their information, but they do. And we've always said, you know, in an admiring way, that the Jesuits form the greatest intelligence service in the world, always have.
Did you hear that?
The Jesuits form the greatest intelligence service in the world, always have.
The Jesuits are so vile that even Helena Blavatsky, a witch and Satanist, could not stand them.
Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky was a 19th century Russian occultist who founded the Theosophical Society and was one of the chief pioneers of the New Age movement. But even in her Luciferian glorifying blasphemous statements, she found the Jesuits the most repulsive and dangerous men on earth. And in her book, Isis Unveiled Volume 2, she says that the Jesuits have done more moral harm in this world than all the fiendish armies of the mythical Satan. Every one of the statements which follows in quotation marks are extracted from authenticated manuscripts or folios printed by this distinguished body. She quotes from a 17th century Spanish Jesuit priest, Anthony Escobar Mendoza, and you can get a picture why the Jesuits were so hated, not just by the Protestants, but by everyone they came into contact with. Anthony Escobar says, "It is lawful to make use of the science acquired through the assistance of the devil, provided the preservation and use of that knowledge do not depend upon the devil. For the knowledge is good in itself, and the sin by which it was acquired has gone by." This was the mind of a Jesuit.
When an occultist and a Satanist abhor the Jesuits, you know this nefarious order must be really, really evil. This religious order is so evil that many countries, including Catholic countries, banned them.
Although this plaque is talking about Franciscan nuns, it does sound similar to the Jesuits' experience, banned by the land of their birth. The Jesuits have been expelled from over 100 countries all over the world, including the Vatican itself by Pope Clement XIV in 1773. The reason for this, their philosophy, the end justifies the means, has encouraged Jesuit warfare to crush Protestantism. Diego Lainez, the second superior general of the Jesuits, orchestrated the ethnic cleansing of Protestants in France in 1572. French King Louis XIV in 1685 was instructed by his Jesuit confessor Francois de la Chaise to force the Protestants to either join Catholicism or ethnically cleanse them from France, and that's exactly what he did.
For centuries, the Jesuits fought relentlessly to weaken Protestants and were mostly successful. Some of our Catholic friends may find this video upsetting. However, we owe the truth to everyone. For this same reason, we warn people to beware of greedy and ungodly preachers who have infiltrated evangelical churches. They pose as gospel preachers, but in reality, they're agents of Satan. Similarly, while there are many of God's people in the Catholic Church, we want Catholics to see that Catholicism is a false religious system that does not serve or worship God. God's judgment awaits her and anyone who partakes of her idolatrous and adulterous sins. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Revelation 18, verses 1, 2, 4, and 5. While there's still time, turn to Jesus Christ to save you. Tomorrow might be too late.